Lisa Marie Agustinelli Manderach was born on September 30, 1965, in Norristown, Pennsylvania. She graduated from Norristown High School in 1983 and in 1992 married James Manderach, known as Jamie. They had known each other since elementary school and for a long time were just friends. Jimmy had already been married and was divorced when he and Lisa started dating. They settled in Limerick Township, Montgomery County, also in Pennsylvania, a quiet and safe place with good schools and almost zero crime. It was a small town at the time, with only 7,000 inhabitants, and was seen as an ideal place to raise a family. Their daughter, Devon Marie, was born on February 4th, 1994. The family was a member of the Lutheran Church. Those who knew Lisa described her as a happy, optimistic person who always made others smile. She worked at a food distributor and her routine was exhausting. She also worked as a caretaker on weekends with her husband to increase the family's income. And whenever they could, they did volunteer work for a local NGO that took care of homeless people and abandoned elderly people. On the other side of town, we have Caleb Fairley, a deeply unhappy and embittered person, known for walking alone and never participating in any town celebrations. He was born on October 21st, 1973, the eldest child of five. His parents were James, a pharmacist, and Ruth Fairley, a businesswoman. Tragically, in 1989, 4-year-old David, Caleb's brother, died while playing with a gun in the backyard, and it accidentally went off. Neighbors reported that they often saw Caleb and David playing together in the family pool, and he apparently never got over his brother's death. Caleb's father was a quiet man, becoming even quieter after his son's death. Caleb seemed to get along well with his father, but his relationship with his mother was not good at all. Ruth Fairley was a domineering and controlling woman who viewed her son with contempt. She was always cursing him for no reason, calling him stupid and constantly saying he didn't do anything right. Caleb attended Upper Merion High School. He was a good student according to his teachers. In fact, he was regarded as a gifted child and had a special education at school. In contrast, he was constantly bullied by other students, who made fun of his weight, the way he dressed, and almost everything about him. The boy became increasingly awkward, socially withdrawn, and spent most of his time alone. He had little experience with women. However, he had a short-term girlfriend named Melissa Arcadia, who described him as an intelligent young man with a lot of inner pain who was afraid of women, probably due to the bad relationship with his mother. In 1992, there were several incidents where Caleb was accused of harassment, specifically for grabbing women by the buttocks. In every job he went through, he was mocked and harassed by co-workers. Due to the lack of affection at home, at the torment of his classmates and co-workers, he preferred to be alone in his fantasy world. Caleb spent most of his time on his room, where he dressed up as a vampire and played a Dungeons & Dragons RPG. Far more sinister was his collection of violent and sadistic adult content that he kept under the bed. Upon graduating from high school, Caleb studied computer science at Westchester College, but ended up dropping out of course in the first semester and enrolled at a Montgomery County Community College, community institution of higher learning, getting very good grades. But he didn't return for the second half of 1995, claiming he had no money. In fact, he wanted to save so he could move out his parents' house. If there was one boy lost in his life, it was Caleb. On Sunday, September 10th, 1995, Lisa thought it looked like a good idea for shopping. Her husband Jimmy was lying in front of the TV watching football. She then learned that there was a new children's clothing store at the Collegeville Shopping Center, Your Kids and Mine, which had recently opened and had excellent deals. The store was only 15 minutes away, and Lisa decided to check it out. Around 3 p.m., Lisa told Jimmy that she was taking her daughter Devon to the mall to see the new store that they wouldn't be long. This would be the last time Jimmy would see his wife and daughter alive. When dinner time came and Lisa still wasn't home, Jimmy was worried. She said she'd be back soon, he thought. Not wanting to sound alarmist, Jimmy called his brother, then his sister, asking what he should do. The sibling said he was overreacting and not to worry. Jimmy and Lisa were really happy in their marriage, so no one could imagine that the woman just got up and walked away with her daughter. By nightfall, Jimmy was already panicking and decided to call the police. A police officer went to the man's house and told him to check to see if any of Lisa's toiletries were missing or if any suitcases were missing. But everything was where it should be, indicating that Lisa hadn't run away. Jimmy explained to the police what had happened that afternoon. He was watching football, and Lisa drove Devon around 3 p.m. to the new store at the mall. The police then went to the store, certain that the woman would still be shopping. They found her car in the parking lot, but there was no sign of a mother and a daughter there. They were nowhere to be found, and there was no sign of struggle inside or outside the car. What Jimmy didn't know is that even before he called the police that Sunday, some people walking through Valley Forge National Park had made a frightening discovery. About 50 meters above the trail, at the top of the embankment, there was a road and the body of a girl was seen among the falling autumn leaves. It looked like she'd been thrown from a car from the road above. The police were called immediately. Jimmy's brother, John, agreed to go to the hospital and see if the girl was Devon. He was so scared he didn't want to go. And unfortunately, it was her. The autopsy revealed that her collarbone was broken and the cause of death was suffocation. Investigators were unable to recover any evidence of the hair fiber from Devon's clothing. If there had been any, it would have likely been lost when she was thrown out of the car. Naturally, as always happens when a wife and daughter go missing, although Lisa hasn't been found yet, the husband comes under immediate suspicion. Lead investigator on the case, Lt. Richard Peffel, said in an interview that he was suspicious of Jimmy for refusing to identify his daughter's body, adding that this was a very unusual choice on the part of the father who had lost a child. Lisa's family members sided with Jimmy, insisting that Lisa and Devon were his world and that he would never do anything to harm them. The couple's neighbors also told the police that Jimmy's car had been parked in the garage all afternoon, providing the man with an alibi. Later, police ruled out Jimmy as a suspect, and detectives began looking elsewhere for clues to what had happened. As Lisa was still missing, an intense search of the park was carried out throughout Monday, September 11th. Helicopters were used, as well as sniffer dogs and more than 20 people, who searched every inch of the park but found nothing. Back at the mall, the detectives began asking the store owners if they had seen Lisa and Devon the day before. Then a woman said she was shopping at the store on Sunday and said she had seen mother and daughter. She made a purchase at the store, and as she left, she saw Lisa on the shelves of clothes. The police then went to the store and were able to confirm that the woman actually made a purchase there around 3:40 p.m., which was the last transaction of the day at the store. Officers discovered that the store belonged to a woman named Ruth Fairley, and that her son, Caleb Fairley, was working there alone on Sunday. They called Caleb, asking if he had seen a woman matching Lisa's description with a child in the store the day before. He denied seeing anyone with that description, but agreed to meet with detectives to view photos of the victims. When they met with Caleb that afternoon, they noticed the young man was wearing crudely applied makeup. Detectives asked him to clean his face, and it was possible to see that he was covered in scratches. He said he had gone to a rock concert at a nightclub the night before, and during the concert, he had a riot, which would have caused the scratches. Obviously, the detectives didn't believe this story. Investigators then obtained a search warrant to search Caleb's mother's home and store. In his room, they found his stash of vampire-related items and his collection of adult magazines, many of which were violent in nature. They also found what they described as strange sexual devices. The officers also found a t-shirt with a drawing of a woman being beaten by vampires. Many sources says that the woman in the drawing looked like Lisa. Some newspaper even said that the design of the shirt inspired Caleb to attack Lisa, as baseless as it is. In a search of the store, authorities found several videotapes showing women and children changing clothes in the changing room. They had been filmed through a hidden camera that Caleb had placed on the scene without anyone knowing. A witness came forward to detectives, saying he saw someone in the store vacuuming before closing on Sunday. Upon examining the vacuum cleaner, detectives discovered a series of long, black hairs surrounding the vacuum cleaner and brush. However, they couldn't compare them to Lisa's because she was still missing. Ultraviolet light was used to identify bodily fluids on the store's carpet, which revealed various types of fluids, such as seminal, saliva, and sweat. The semen stains matched the blood sample taken from Caleb Fairley. However, this evidence was not enough to prove that Caleb Fairley was responsible for Devon's death or Lisa's disappearance. Although the saliva found in the store matched the little Devon, that was also not enough to prove that Caleb killed her, just proving that she had been in the store. As for the semen stains, it just showed that Caleb was a pervert who touched himself in the store. It didn't prove he had sexually assaulted anyone there. But the police were convinced that the scratches on the boy's face were the result of an attack on Lisa, but to prove it, they needed to find her. So the detectives informed Caleb about the forensic evidence found at the store, in an attempt to get the man to confess something, and incredibly, Caleb told the officers that he would show them where Lisa's body was, if it would help him avoid being sentenced to death. Everyone was perplexed. The man had just confessed to the crime of his own free will and in a cold way. Perhaps he knew that he would end up being accused, as he realized that the evidence they had against him was very strong. Police desperately needed to find the woman's body to preserve forensic evidence that could convict Caleb, so they settled the deal. Although Pennsylvania technically still has the death penalty, there have only been 3 people executed in the state from 1978 to that date. On September 12, 1995, Caleb led detectives to Lisa's body, 5 miles from where Devon was found, in a forest behind an industrial park. Lisa was naked, except for a black lace blouse, which had been put out around her neck. As they suspected, Lisa's fingernails were broken and bloody. Later, forensic analysis performed on the nails revealed that the DNA found on them matched that of Caleb Fairley, and the long dark hair found in the vacuum cleaner actually belonged to Lisa, after further analysis. Lisa suffered several other injuries in the attack. Her body was covered in bruises, and 5 of her ribs were broken. Like the daughter, she was too strangled. Caleb Fairley was arrested and charged with the deaths of mother and daughter. Incredibly, he pleaded not guilty but later confessed to everything. His trial began on April 10, 1996. The charges Caleb faced include 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and abuse of a corpse. The prosecution portrayed Caleb as a pervert addicted to adult content who saw Lisa as a physical description of women in their most perverse fantasies. According to prosecutors, the crime took place as follows. When Lisa and Devon entered the store, Lisa immediately caught Caleb's attention. Since it was just him, Lisa and Devon alone inside, he snuck up to the front door and locked it. Mother and daughter were near the back to the store when he cornered them. Caleb said he knocked Lisa to the ground and tried to sexually assault her, but she struggled, kicking, clawing, and screaming. Infuriated by her resistance, he put his hand around Lisa's neck and choked her. So he did the same with Devon. Frustrated that he had been able to commit the abuse, he found himself looking at the woman's body. He then dragged the bodies to his car, and amazingly, he managed to do it without anyone seeing. Afterwards, he dumped Devon's body from the vehicle in the park and placed Lisa's in the woods. Caleb didn't say anything during his trial, and his lawyer pleaded insanity. After 4 days of testimony, the jury deliberated the sentence. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Today, at age 47, he is incarcerated in the State Correctional Institution. The man still filed a series of appeals to have a new trial, but none were heard. At the request of family members, Lisa and Devon Manderach were buried together in a single coffin at St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Cemetery. Well guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching until the end, best wishes, and I see you next time.